Hi, I'm Melissa Jackson. I'd like to welcome you to our annual Day of Remembrance. Each year, we take a moment to remember our veterans, members, and staff we have lost over the past year. Each year I say, I hope that this ceremony brings more laughter than tears, and it ties in nicely to an Irish proverb that I was brought up with, which says, "Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sun on the ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circling flight. I am soft starlight at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die." Thank you for joining us today.
Battle boots into the world, leaving freedom with its marks. We honor you for being strong and for holding our country's heart. Your last salute will never die. We see it everywhere. The skies, the lands, and the seas cry out your name in victory. Today we honor all you've done to keep our country free. We traveled the world and made your mark to let our freedom ring. We honor you for being strong and for holding our country's heart. Your last salute will never die. We see it everywhere. The skies, the lands, and the seas cry out your name in victory. We feel it everywhere. We feel it everywhere. We feel it everywhere. Today, this last salute for you goes on so endlessly. We pray for you, honor you, and hold you in our hearts. We honor you for being strong and for holding our country's heart. Your last salute will never die. We see it everywhere. The skies, the lands, and the seas cry out your name in victory. We feel it everywhere. We feel it everywhere. We feel it everywhere.
John Jack Barnes, U.S. Air Force, Vietnam War. Jack liked people. Early after his admission to the home, he took a few of his VVH buddies on a joyride to his old residence without permission from VVH. He thought he could get away with it since he had a great sense of humor and really enjoyed pulling some mild pranks when he could get away with it. Jack had said he was really good at running screw machines when he had worked, and made trips to local junkyards to see what new cars had come in that day. He had amassed a great record collection and liked to play his 50s and 60s music. The staff remembers Jack liked his coffee with 2 creams with 2 sugars. He was very fond of cold cuts and loved milk. He was known to drink milk out of a jug and was caught in the act many times by the staff. Ice cream came in second on his list of favorite foods. Jack said he liked people and to help them out when he could. He was fondly remembered by the staff for his big heart, sweet and kind soul, and his positive outlook despite the challenges he had faced. Ruth Barnhill, U.S. Air Force, Korean War. Ruth served in the Air Force immediately after her high school graduation and is one of the first members of the WAFs, Women in Air Force. She met her husband while they were stationed in Japan and were married for 58 years and had 4 sons. Ruth had worked for a lawyer and provided for her boys, and she said to this day, if she could have dinner with anyone, it would be her 4 sons. Ruth came to realize her artistic ability later in life and enjoyed painting scenes of Vermont and the Berkshires, her 2 favorite places. She also liked antiquing and enjoying finding that one special treasure. Ruth was known for her kindness and generosity, always willing to help or say a kind word. She was known for her beautiful smile, which she was more than willing to share. She had owned a cat and would often ask staff where it was. In response, staff said they would come up with some pretty creative answers to appease her curiosity, but then they would find a soft, furry friend for her to hold. Alice Bennett, U.S. Navy, World War II. Alice was very proud of her service in the Waves. Enlisting in 1944, she was president of the local chapter of the Green Mountain Waves for 4 years. While in the Navy, she met her husband, who was stationed at the same base as she, and they were married shortly after their discharges. They started a family and settled in New York. After her beloved Gerald passed away, Alice moved to Bennington and immediately made her presence known. She was a very social lady who made friends easily, enjoyed playing bridge, and was president of her condo association and was active in the RSVP. She kept in touch with her family and remembered to say a prayer for them every day. Alice got around at the home as well. Staff remember her as friendly and caring lady, and her philosophy was to think about a subject first before talking about it. Staff remembers her photo on the cover of the Buzzword cutting the cake for the Navy birthday. They said she was proud to be chosen for that honor because entering the Waves was one of the best decisions of her life besides getting married. Rene Bigeneau, U.S. Army, World War II. Rene was a gentleman by all definitions. Staff remembers he loved to be outdoors. In the winter, he would get bundled up and bask in the sunshine. During nicer weather, he would go out and feed the birds or swing by the deer park or the fish pond, always sitting in the sun. He was a great storyteller about his hockey prowess, career in the New York City Mounted Police, or the motorcycle tours he led in northern Vermont and Canada. Sometimes the stories got the female staff laughing, so he finally called them his cackling hens. He often spoke about his wife and family and how much he missed them. Being away from them was difficult. Rene was born in France and told the story of his parents' decision to move to the U.S. and not Germany. He often stated that he could have been fighting for the Germans if they had not migrated to America. He was especially proud of his service in the Army and the infantry on the front lines at the Battle of the Bulge. Staff recalls that he used Gorilla Glue on everything, wanted his toast burnt, and liked V8 juice. They also remembered him as a gentleman who always thanked them for helping him. He will be missed by staff and residents too. George Berner, U.S. Army, World War II. George said that his dad's advice made him the man he had become, so his words of wisdom were, listen to your mother and father and behave yourself and don't take any chances. Maybe the only serious chances George took was when he was playing what he called heavy-duty poker for money. He liked the challenge, and maybe it was why he enjoyed hunting and fishing, being outside and looking for the next quarry, whether it was a deer or a trout. George had a passion for cars. and was known for rebuilding vehicles. He had been a mechanic and a salesman for General Motors, eventually owning his garages. He said he could not think of anything that he didn't like to do, but given the choice, he said traveling with his wife was on the top of his list, followed by fishing on a boat in Cape Cod. Staff remembers he liked to watch Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, and they kept snacks on hand, usually something with chocolate, especially eclairs. He also told them his favorite holiday was his birthday, and that he would not mind getting chocolate on his special day. James Brookman, U.S. Army, Korean War. James was born and raised in Pownell, and after his tour of duty, Jim returned home and married his lady, Virginia, with whom he had one son. He was known as a hard worker and established an excellent reputation of a skilled and responsible carpenter, so his name for quality extended beyond his immediate community. Jim was also involved with his community as a member of the Bennington Elks Lodge 567 and had served as the first commander of the American Legion post in Pownell. Jim was at the Veterans Home for a very short time. Staff were not given the opportunity to get to know him very well, but they remembered that he spoke often of his wife, his son, and daughter-in-law. He told them he was part of a large family growing up with 6 siblings, and then in his adult years enjoyed seeing all his nieces and nephews growing up. Jim was a man of few words, but when he did speak, there was a kindness in his voice that you could not miss. Cecelia Cartwright. Cecelia was married for 53 years to William, a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force, and had traveled the world and extensively in the United States with him. She said some of her favorite memories were driving for the Red Cross and meeting famous people during their travels. Out of all the places they had been, Cecelia would have liked to have had a long vacation in Hawaii. One of her hobbies was buying and selling antiques. Cecelia was known as an excellent quilter and enjoyed cooking for her family and friends. Cecelia liked to keep busy, and the activities department provided a variety of programs in which she participated, like bowling, coloring pictures, flower arranging, and other arts and crafts projects. Staff said they were surprised by her diverse taste in music, ranging from oldies to classical. They also remembered that she liked to watch the game shows and have a sweet snack while helping the contestants bid on The Price is Right. Art Sharon, U.S. Marine Corps, Korean War. Art was definitely a people person. He was always involved in serving the community. He was the past exalted ruler of the Elks, but he said what was more important was that he was a Veterans Services Chair and was instrumental in coordinating activities at the Vets Home, including 2 annual fishing derbies, an annual Las Vegas Casino Day, cookouts, weekly movie nights, and the biannual Elks Dinner, complete with filet mignon dinner. He said nothing but the best for the veterans. He served on the VVH Board of Trustees and was honored with the dedication of Sharon Pond, since he was instrumental in construction of the deck around it. At services for one of his daughters, he found a family that he had never met, and they embraced him and shared Sunday dinners with him. They even came to the Albany airport at 6 a.m. to see him off on the leather stocking tour of Washington, D.C. Art was a very positive soul who was a great jokester and loved to banter. He was a dedicated husband and made daily visits to his wife, calling her sweetheart and telling her, "I love you." His favorite saying was, "Every day is a good day if you are right side up," and he was always ready to relax after an active day, and Art liked to relax and kick back with a gin and tonic. Raymond Clark, U.S. Army, Vietnam War. When he graduated from high school, Ray attended a trade school which prepared him with skills as a journeyman machinist. After his tour of the Army, he worked for various businesses in and around his home. He had become an active member of the Moose Lodge. Most notably, Ray became very involved with the track and field, as well as wrestling programs at Springfield High School. He was the timekeeper at the track meets and the meet director for the wrestling team. He was also a competent scorekeeper for both of the sports. Ray was not at VVH very long, but staff notes that they would see him walking in the halls, and he was always saying hello and had a big smile when greeting you. One thing they did know, that he was a huge fan of the Boston Red Sox and New England teams. James Curran, World War II, U.S. Army. Jim was an interesting fellow. He married Rose Marie, and they raised a large family of 10 children, 6 daughters and 4 sons, and he had said he had so many special memories of his time with the family that he could not choose just one. All of them were special events. He said having 15 grandchildren was now a little hard to keep up with. He had a great sense of humor and was asked what was his favorite animal. And Jim said a baby elephant, and one of his favorite places to go was his attic. The attic seemed a bit odd since Jim loved to work in the garden, had played golf almost every day in addition to being an excellent downhill skier. Staff said Jim did not like to complain, and the only item that fit into this category was nosy people. He had told them he attended 2 colleges, gave up smoking, which was not easy, stayed active and up to date with the news. The staff said he told them that he had lived a very happy life and glad to share those special stories. Chapin Darling, U.S. Army, Korean War. Chap had enrolled in the ROTC program, and after his training was an MP during his time in the service. He had a 4-year degree in business that he put to use after his discharge. After 22 years in the insurance business in Connecticut, the move to Vermont was fulfilling a change in careers that had been long in the making. The Darlings ran a bed and breakfast called the Darling Family Inn for 30 years, and Chap stated being his own boss was the best. He said he could get up when he wanted, have his coffee and breakfast, take care of his guests, and then take care of the property. He was on his own schedule. He and Joni had been married for 68 years and had 3 children. Chap and Joni, who eventually became a resident at VVH, attended many of the music programs and were participants in the activities at the home and in their neighborhood. It was unusual to see one without the other. John Dietz, U.S. Navy, Vietnam War. A graduate of Williams College with a degree in art history, he was active in sports and clubs as a student and was a member of the reunion committee after graduation. Being a gifted athlete who enjoyed golfing with his friends, playing tennis and skiing, he started business in sports and leisure named Dietz Associates. He thoroughly enjoyed his job as a sales representative. Although he is very active, dancing was on the bottom of his list of activities, but hiking with his wife and dogs ranked very high. John was very active in the art community and had a special interest in military history. His special memory of his was his assignment on his first aircraft carrier, the USS Forrestal, which was called the world's first super aircraft carrier. Staff remembers he liked to listen to soft rock and advised them not to get married too young. John also said it was important to be proud of a person that tries and does not give up, and to always strive and to be better tomorrow than you are today. Julia Fox. Julia spent 1 year at college, followed by a very long, successful career as secretary and treasurer for Jacksonville, Vermont. She said it had been her favorite job. She held various positions in the American Legion Auxiliary in Whitingham, the Historical Society, the Jacksonville Community Church, and was past matron of the Mayflower Chapter 19. She had married Reginald in 1956 and spent 59 years together raising their family of 3 children. Julia had enjoyed baking for her family, and she was famous for her fudge. She had special memories of times at their camp and Lake Whitingham, riding in a hay wagon with her father and her dogs, as well as riding horses with her sister. Julia attended many of the activities at the homes. She may not have participated in all the games on the units, but she kept a keen eye on the competitors. Not much got by her. Staff remembers she liked to read, especially Nora Roberts and James Patterson, and would listen to old-time country music. They say Julia had a unique philosophy in that she loved everybody, but she did not like people who were mean to others, especially to children. She told them it was very important to be true to themselves and not be influenced by other people. Elizabeth Glanz. Liz worked for the University of Connecticut in the School of Fine Arts, thoroughly enjoying the world of academia. She said it was her favorite job, which gave her access to many books and music genres. While working, she married her husband, Robert, and they were raising 3 children, and the family grew to include grandchildren. Liz had a feisty spirit and a great sense of humor. Asked what word best described her, she answered, jerk, with a smile on her face. She said TV was boring, the holidays were boring, but she did like to watch basketball if her favorite team was playing, of course, which is UConn. Staff asked her what she kept in stock in her refrigerator. Liz just gave them one of her looks and had a sarcastic answer, just food. Liz could not think of any place special she would have wanted to visit, to travel, but she said she would have been nicer if her sister would come along so they could spend some more time together. Liz's favorite meal was breakfast, and she did not mind telling staff they could serve breakfast at any time during the day. They also said that Liz was fond of giving them her words of advice. Do the best you can with whatever you do, and she meant it. Thomas Graham, U.S. Air Force, Vietnam War. Tom was gifted in many areas. He said he was funny and had a very active social life with his wife, the love of his life, Dixie, with whom he had shared 51 exceptional, wonderful years and helped raise their 3 children. He could sing, play the banjo, dance, was a ventriloquist. He was also quite a water skier and a biker by Harley-Davidson definition. Tom was also very religious and very deep belief in God. He liked to listen to contemporary Christian music and hymns. He was proud to participate in the Patriot Guard, paying back to the fallen military members. Staff remembers Tom liked sweets and would prefer ice cream, peanut butter and crackers, and milkshakes. Fruits were okay, but not vegetables. They also said he liked to go outdoors and try to fix things, but because, according to Tom, he was really good at fixing things, or so he thought. Raymond Ray Grelinsky, U.S. Navy, Vietnam War. Ray was a very talented, renowned artist who developed his own 12-step style for his productions. He had a show at the opening of the Bennington Tourist Center, and his work was displayed in various parts of the Vermont Veterans Home and in offices of some staff. Ray often mentioned that the best decision he ever made and the person who influenced his choices in his life was his lovely wife, Natasha, a very well-known classical pianist who, he says, kept him on the right path. Ray said if he stepped off the right path, it was the artist in him, and he could not help himself because he was just not wired like other people. He had a great sense of humor and would frequently banter with one of the receptionists who nicknamed him Trouble, and he liked it. Ray said it fit him well because he loved to shop and would seldom be on time to meet transport for the ride home. Being an easygoing guy, he did not really understand why trouble just followed him. Staff remembers that Ray loved his coffee and would have a cup in his hand, except for when he was working on an art project. Housekeeping said cleaning his room was challenging due to the pencils, paints, canvas, and other art supplies he kept on hand in case he had an inspiration. Dream vacation would have been to visit all the art galleries in Europe, but since that was not possible, he had subscribed to many, many art magazines where he could look at old classics and emerging styles. Edward Ed Gray, U.S. Army, World War II. Ed was quite a storyteller and could spin a yarn with a lot of twists. He once told a staff member that his favorite sandwich was a thick slice of a Vidalia onion on a piece of white bread with a little bit of mayo, just enough to hold the onion in place. In the dining hall, staff recalls Ed had 2 glasses of grape juice, not grape soda, with his meals. He had a beautiful singing voice and had been in the church choir. He said he would sing more often if he could only remember the words of the song. His wife had also been a resident at the home, but they lived in separate units. Ed never forgot their anniversary or her birthday and made sure she received a gift he had chosen especially for her. Ed said his best decision of his life was marrying his wife and was most proud of his entire family. Home-cooked meals and family dinners were his favorite memories, especially if they had apple pie for dessert. He was an avid reader, and when his eyesight began to fail, Ed would order books on tape, usually westerns or mysteries. He said the only problem with listening to books was that he would often fall asleep and they would need to rewind to the spot he could remember. Ed considered himself to be a good guy when he wanted to be, and that every day he tried the best to keep out of trouble. The staff might have had something to say about that. Robert Hockman, U.S. Navy, World War II. Bob began his career in education as a teacher of small engine repair. His strong will and determination were the leadership skills that enabled his advancement to principal and later superintendent of schools. His intelligence, humor, and generous nature influenced many, many students. Bob was married to Frances for 68 years, and they raised 4 daughters. He liked to travel and was always looking for new adventures for the family. He loved boating and fishing, so it was natural for him to use his carpentry skills rebuilding wooden boats. He always had an ongoing project. Tom also had a great sense of humor and was quite good at square dancing. Staff remembers he had a sweet tooth and liked coffee and donuts for breakfast. They always kept the neighborhood stocked with cookies, ice creams, chips, cake, and pies, any kind of pies, just for him. They said when Bob smiled, they knew he was having a good day. Robert Holden, U.S. Navy, Vietnam War. Bob began his career in electronics the last 2 years of high school and continued that line of study during his military career, attending guided missile school. He said if he could put all the schools he attended together, it would be equivalent to a college degree. He was a very devout Jehovah's Witness and attended services when he was able. He read the Bible daily and said he tried to the best of his abilities to live by its teachings. He said one of his dreams was to teach the Bible to others and to share its principles. Bob enjoyed listening to religious music because he said it brought him closer to God. He had been an outdoorsman and liked to fish until his health became an issue. He was very adept at using the computer, and he said he was a big fan of the Yankees. He kept close track of their record by listening to the radio or watching the TV. He said he wanted people to know that he was an easygoing guy. He stated God was a huge presence in his life and that Bob appreciated everything and complained about nothing because he was following God's will. Staff said they admired his strength of character. He was truly one of a kind that you will never forget. Gene Howard King. Growing up in a family of 10 children, Jean was relied upon to do some of the caregiving duties that come with large families. Her high school job afforded her the means to buy her first sewing machine, and her love of designing dresses and wedding gowns moved on to a new level. She would create her fashion. She had moved around the U.S. and lived in many states, eventually moving back to Vermont. She discovered her latent natural talents in ceramics, drawing, and painting, in which she excelled. Jean eventually owned and operated an upholstery shop until she and her husband retired. At the Vermont Veterans Home, Jean loved the group activities, enjoyed flower arranging, coloring, and going on the golf cart rides. Staff said Jean liked to watch the soap operas, relishing the drama as it unfolded in the episodes. Jean was married 3 times and noted each of her husbands were wonderful. She told staff to enjoy themselves, love people and they will love you, but most importantly, be the person you want to be. Ira Kaufman, U.S. Army Air Corps, World War II. Ira was quite the character, and if he had to describe himself, it would be fantastic, his favorite word. He said life was great and there was nothing to complain about. This is coming from a man who was skiing well into his 80s, finally having to give it up at 90. Ira stated he liked women, but did not like men. He was definitely in love with his wife, Valerie, and their 2 daughters. Asked about his favorite place to visit, or he had a special activity, he said there were too many places, too many adventures from which to choose. In other words, they were all fantastic, but a trip to Switzerland might have been interesting. He said he was very proud to have served his country, and upon returning, he owned a home maintenance business. Ira liked all sports, baseball, football, soccer, and read sports magazines, but his favorite pastime was relaxing, which was rather hard to believe. Staff recalls that Ira had a sarcastic side. For instance, when asked what could be found in his refrigerator at home, he said, food. Who would he like to have dinner with? A gourmet chef. He definitely kept the staff on the bright side with his wisecracks and his smiles. Vincent Kelly, U.S. Army, Vietnam War. After the service, Vinny had worked for his brother in sales for the distribution of technology, hardware, and software services. He married his sweetheart, Kathy, and had 3 daughters. He told stories about coaching his daughters during softball and basketball seasons. Staff said he was quite the character. Vinny liked to be around people and did not mind being the center of attention, so he would dress up for meals since he had an image to maintain. He was a jokester and would mimic someone or make faces while they were talking just to get a laugh. He used to practice pitching a softball and engage staff as part of his team for pitching camp. Vinny was musically gifted and played the harmonica, ukulele, and guitar. He would hum or sing his 50s doo-wop songs and dance to them by himself or with staff. He was never lacking a dance partner because the staff said they loved to dance with him. A special memory shared by staff was going on golf cart rides, singing and rocking out to Rockin' Robin. They said Vinny's antics and good humor will be missed, as the neighborhood will be much quieter without him. Gail Keyes. Gail was very well known in the community for her days as a waitress, a receptionist at Mac Molding, or working at Arlington High School. She gave up her career for her mother. She was also known for her musical talents as a singer and songwriter. She had performed with several local bands, including her own, the Kelly Stand Symphony, which had been the opening act for Willie Nelson. The band also performed at many of the local nursing homes, including the Vermont Veterans Home. She had entered and won several of the Vermont State Grange talent shows. Her vocal style was very much appreciated by audiences who attended performances of Nonsense and Nonsense 2 at the local theater. Gail had a very big heart and was involved with many community events. She coordinated and directed the Country and Western Music Show in Arlington, was a very active member of the West Arlington Methodist Church, as well as the Battenkill Grange 487. Most of all, Gail was best remembered for her love of family, her 5 children and all her grandchildren and everyone else that she considered to be her extended family and friends. Staff recalls she liked to watch hee-haw and listen to country music, tapping her fingers while enjoying her favorite snacks, ice cream, and chocolates. Marie Legacy. Marie was well known in the community, having worked at WBTN Radio, Union Carbide, also known as Eveready, and at Mount Anthony Union High School in various capacities, her favorite being the supervisor of in-school suspension. Her sassy and spunky attitude were a perfect fit for the position. She was a proud wrestling mom, and with her husband Harold, started the wrestling pep club since both her boys were wrestlers. She was an avid fan at all their matches. Besides the wrestling, Marie liked to go dancing with her husband, especially if it was to country music. Marie was a regular attendant to many of the functions at the Vermont Veterans Home, especially if it involved music. Staff said she was always first in line for golf cart rides. Marie's quick wit and sense of humor made life interesting, and her fiery attitude and the stories about her youth kept them laughing. They said she will be missed, and American Way will never be the same without her. Jean Lewis. Jean liked kids and at one time had a daycare center. She said the best decision she ever made was having children. She loved going places with her 4 daughters or simply spending time with them as a family. Jean was very good at square dancing, and she and her husband Newman would promenade and do-si-do to the commands of the caller. In her younger years, Jean had liked to ski in the winter and swim in the summer. Walking in the woods was good any time of the year. She preferred country and Western music, but would listen to classical or other easy listening tunes while she read the newspaper or one of her favorite novels. She was also a NASCAR fan, and if there were races, Jean would be watching. Staff said Jean liked activities at the home and would go outside to watch the parades or take part in the arts and crafts. They remembered Jean was an early riser, usually between 5 and 6 in the morning, and coffee better be ready and waiting for her to start her day. Jean admitted that she had a little temper, but according to staff, all they saw was a caring and kind lady. Ken Lewis, U.S. Army, Korean War. Ken was born and raised in Randolph and then returned after his service, where he married Betty, the love of his life, who was also his traveling companion. They were inseparable and enjoyed following the PGA and LPGA tours throughout the United States. Ken was an excellent golfer himself and had won the 1963 Vermont State Amateur Champion and 2 other local country club championships. Ken described himself as on the go and had an abundance of energy. He had been very active in the community, serving as the Springfield Club president. His sense of humor and laughter were contagious. He said he was a happy guy and wished he could still drive so he could go out and visit with his buddies. Now he enjoyed the golf cart rides and said it was too bad they did not have radios so they could listen to the upbeat music of rock and roll. Ken celebrated his 90th birthday at the home with members of his immediate family, and he told the staff this was a very special memory for him. He was especially proud of his family. Staff recalls Ken wanted to know he was a patriotic man. His favorite colors were red, white, and blue, and enjoyed celebrating patriotic holidays. True to his convictions, Ken was a huge Patriot fan. Glenn Munson, U.S. Army. Glenn had attended Kent State University and earned a BS in Mass Communication Media Studies. He used his degree to become the managing editor of Pyramid Book. He was the creative director of Media Associates. He said he truly enjoyed writing and editing and meeting the needs of his clients in the marketing arena. He loved to read and served as treasurer of the Friends of the Paulet Public Library. He designed posters for the book sale at the library. At the home, he liked to look through old photographs and old letters and reminisce what they meant to him while listening to the music stylings of Duke Ellington, John Coltrane, and other classical jazz artists. Glenn had told staff that he had written a play called Rowena back in the 70s, which was another one of his hidden talents in the literary world. Glenn always liked to have a stash of chips or peanut butter and crackers on hand in case he felt the need for a snack. The staff was more than willing to oblige with his requests. Richard Nash, U.S. Army, Korean War. Richard did not finish high school and enlisted into the Army when he was 17. He served for 5 years during the Korean War, and when discharged, joined a road paving crew, which turned into a 32-year career in road construction. Richard was a guy who liked to fix things and keep busy. He said he really did not like being at VVH because there was nothing to do and nothing to fix. He listened to old country western music, and like most of his generation, Gunsmoke with Marshall Dillon was his favorite TV show. Staff said he had a sweet tooth and he would have his usual snacks, devil dogs and cupcakes on hand. He also made mention that his favorite snack was maple ice cream. He once told them that camping sounded like it would be a good vacation because you could snack all the time. Mostly Rich told staff he was just a person trying to get back and survive, doing the best he could. Anson Sonny Pratt, U.S. Marine Corps, Korean War. Sonny was very known for his contagious smile and his involvement in the community. From his beginnings on his family farm, Sonny was known for his trademark John Deere clothing, which made him easy to spot riding his tractor or out in the field. He loved horse racing and was a regular at the Green Mountain track. Sonny had a variety of jobs involving transport, whether it was getting his children to school, on the bus, or driving a tractor hauling lumber. He worked at a local factory until his retirement and kept active in his church and various clubs, including the Pownell's Swinging Seniors. A true outdoorsman, Sonny enjoyed hunting and fishing and had many trophies adorning the walls of his home. He did not mind telling the staff about some of the adventurous tales of his hunting expeditions. Staff remembers that he was extremely proud of his military service. Sonny said he felt privileged to be able to go to Washington, D.C. as part of the Leather Stocking Honor Flight, a trip of a lifetime with other veterans. Stephen Ratz, U.S. Navy, World War II. Steve had been interviewed at the home as part of the CAT TV series, and he revealed how much the Navy life had meant to him. He was part of the minesweeping crew of the English Channel and the coast of France during the D-Day battle. He said they were shot at with all the enemy had to offer, but he and the crew survived. He was very proud. He had earned 2 medals, one for Normandy and the other one for Omaha Beach. After the service, Steve became a firefighter and retired after a 20-year career. He called himself an easygoing guy, and as a kid, he was always up to mischief. Steve said he enjoyed life and socializing, watching NASCAR races on the TV or at the racetrack. He would have made the Navy's his life's career, but his wife had other ideas. He said now he understood why the town clerk tried to talk him out of getting married. Staff recalls he told them to take it day by day and enjoy the good things. He said he was wide open as a book, no secrets, with plenty of stories yet to tell if they had a few hours to listen. Charles Rich, U.S. Navy, peacetime. After his 4 years of service, Charlie returned to Newport and worked as a firearms inspector until his retirement. He often said he wished he had stayed in the Navy. As a younger man, he played a lot of baseball and was still very keen on the sport, keeping up with the Red Sox, but also watching football during that season. Charlie liked to go out for rides, and with no real destination in mind, driving and seeing what was around could bring some surprises, things you only see once in a lifetime. He said it was really hard when he could no longer drive. Charlie had liked to fish and hunt and had beagles for rabbit hunting. He said an Alaskan vacation with fishing for salmon would be a really good adventure. He liked to read about firearms and the American Rifleman, as well as hunting and sporting magazines. Staff remembers that Charlie told them one thing he could really cook was a mean mac and cheese that he might have to share with them, but he would most likely eat it all himself. Arthur Sagno, U.S. Air Force, peacetime. Art was born and raised in Queens, New York, and was a gifted jeweler who had owned a jewelry store. He described himself as a very social person, and his kindness and interest in customers created a large following of return customers. Art said the best decision he ever made was to marry Adrienne, who visited him nearly every day. He told the staff many stories of ballroom dancing with her and raising their 4 children, whom he also loved very dearly. He also bragged at the Italian meals his mother made that were outstanding. Art was a great storyteller to anyone who would listen. He attended most of the activities on his unit and would bend anyone's ear with stories of his life. Staff recalls he liked mighty shakes but not coffee, warm blankets for which he thanked the staff, and watching his favorite movie, Broken Arrow, on a CD purchased especially for him by staff. He described himself as a kind man and said that college was not for everyone, but it might be better to get a trade job and save your money like he did. Jack Spakes, U.S. Army, Vietnam War. Jack was born and raised in North Carolina and spent most of his life there. He had worked as a cook. He loved being with family and traveling to places yet unknown. He said he had been everywhere and all the places were special because of the memories they had made. He stated his proudest moment was his 2 daughters and 2 grandchildren. Jack had an established coffee hour with friends, and they would usually meet at a local McDonald's to swap stories or memories, or just to keep up with world or local news. Staff remembers that his 27 years in the Army were very important to him, and he was extremely proud of his service to his country. They said his advice was to join the military and take advantage of all that it had to offer. Staff also recalls he was a fan of the Westerns. Gunsmoke, Cheyenne, or Wagon Train were some of his favorites, but he had another side to him. He was a listener of religious music or other soothing sounds, especially the piano. Clifford Ray Thayer, U.S. Army, World War II. Ray was not at the home very long, but he quickly established himself as a very interesting man to know. He had told staff that he was an MP when he was stationed in Japan after Hiroshima. It was a difficult time to be in that area for many reasons. He had kept himself busy upon returning to the United States and had worked on a highway crew and eventually retired from New England Power. He was known as a tinkerer and tried to fix things to make them better. As a community member, he was a member of the American Legion, was very active in the fire department, served as a town constable, and later was a deputy with the Bennington County Sheriff's Department, which happened to be his favorite job. Staff said they could hear him play classic country music and watching the Westerns. They remembered they never forgot to say thank you, and he had a smile for everyone that made the day seem a little bit better than it had been a little while ago. Stanley Tourig, U.S. Army, Korean War. Stanley, also known as Spike, was married to his lovely wife Julia for 48 years. He said his best stories came from the camping vacations in their pop-up camper and 4 kids traveling up the East Coast. His wife and children came first, but close behind were his parents and brothers. His dad, brothers, and he made the foursome for all the golf tournaments in which they played, and there were many. Sometimes they lost, other times they won, but it was always a good time. He was an accountant and had served as a town assessor. He was also active in his community and in his church as a communicant. He once owned and operated a laundry, and he said the best and only employees were his wife and 4 children. Spike was a huge fan of New England sports, preferring the Red Sox over the Yankees. Asked what his dream vacation would be, he said it would not be in a pop-up camper, but it would be in a comfortable chair sitting in front of slot machines in Atlantic City. Michael Viscardi, U.S. Navy, Vietnam. Mike said he wanted to be known as a very generous, kind-hearted man. That is what he wanted, but his sassy personality and quick wit might give you a different impression. He was very charismatic, and staff said sassy would be a good word to describe Mike, since he could be a real tease. They could locate him on the neighborhood by his laugh. He liked to be outdoors, enjoy lifting weights to keep fit. Mike described himself as stubborn, and sometimes it took a bit of creativity by the staff to get him to what was needed. He kept them guessing about his music because tastes varied from classical to AC/DC. Staff recalls that his favorite food was coffee, closely followed by McDonald's and KFC. Runners-up would be bologna and dill pickles. Unlike his brothers-in-arms, Mike's advice was, don't join the service. If asked why, he could tell you some really interesting stories. Mary Volpe. Mary had attended community college and worked for an insurance company. She married Frank and had 11 children, so working outside the home was just not possible. She had no favorite holidays. She liked them all. Mary liked to read and preferred movies rather than watch TV. She attended Mass almost every Wednesday when she was able. She was an easygoing person. Mary liked most kinds of music. She did not have any favorites, including no favorite color, no favorite book. Her fondest memories were attending baseball games with her mother. They had made trips to Ebbets Field, home of the Brooklyn Dodgers, to watch their games, and they also seen games at Yankee Stadium. She said it was sad when they tore Ebbets Field down. Mary said she did not think she had influenced anyone nor really given anyone advice, but if she did, Mary liked to say, do your own thing. Paul Wilcox, U.S. Navy, peacetime. Paul joined the service right after graduating from high school. After he was discharged and returned home, he got a job in maintenance in the Arlington and Manchester school districts. He married Ellen in 1958, and they raised 3 children. Eventually, he started his own lawn care and maintenance services and had been a member of the Arlington and Manchester fire departments. Paul was also involved in Little League, a sport he truly loved, and passed on his skills and knowledge to younger generations. His baseball skills were duly noted when he once received a letter from the St. Louis Cardinals inviting him to join the team. However, he declined. Paul was a true outdoorsman who loved fishing and hunting, but most of all, he loved his family and attended all his children's and grandchildren's extracurricular activities. He told staff he was a family man first and foremost, and said he would not change that for the world.
Joseph Krasik, President of Board of Trustees, Vietnam veteran. Joe served as our Board of Directors President for 10 years. Joe also received a Bronze Star, a Silver Star, and 2 Purple Hearts. What many people don't know is Joe's love for the Veterans Home began when he was a child. He often talked about coming to visit with his dad and sitting on the front porch listening to the veterans talk while they smoked cigarettes and rocked in their rocking chairs. Jose was a fierce advocate for our veterans, not only here at the Veterans Home, but across the state, serving as a select board chair, as well as 4 terms as a state representative. Joe will be truly missed, and we can't thank him enough for all that he has done for the Veterans Home.
Hi, it's Chaplain Rick Setzer from the Vermont Veterans Home. I'd like to take a moment and pray for all those who we've lost this past year. So Heavenly Father, we just come before you, Lord. We pray for those that have gone on before us, Lord. Lord, help us not to dwell upon their passing, but upon the lives that they lived, the services that they performed, Lord, for this country, Lord, and the great things that they did in their time here on earth that you gave them. Lord, I pray for their families, no matter where they are. Lord, that your hand be upon them, and that you'll guide them, Lord, in the days ahead. And we pray this all in your Son's precious name. Amen.